Security is stability, a continuity of livelihood, stable and steady income, a predictability of daily life, knowing what to expect, protection from crime, and freedom from psychological harm, safety or protection from emotional stress, which results from the assurance or knowing that one is wanted, accepted, loved, and protected in one's community or neighborhood by the people around. Insecurity, on the other hand, is the antithesis of security. Some of the common descriptors of insecurity include want of safety, danger, hazard, uncertainty, want of confidence, doubtfulness, inadequacy, lacking of stability, being troubled, a lack of protection, being unsafe, and that is just to mention a few. According to the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy of the Nigerian Constitution, the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Nigeria has experienced devastating attacks from armed bandits for more than 2 years. While these attacks initially started in the northwest region of Nigeria, they have since spread to other parts of the country. Armed bandits frequently kidnap unsuspecting members of the public before using their captives to secure huge ransom in return for their release. The level of coordination in the attacks seemed to depict some type of paramilitary training or, at the very least, organization by leaders with military training. Making the problem worse, bandits have recently taken to attacking softer targets such as schools, illustrated most recently by the mass kidnapping in Zamfara State, where gunmen took captive over 300 schoolgirls. The kidnapping is the latest in a string of incidents. In December of 2020, 80 students were kidnapped from an Islamic school in Katsina State, although they were later rescued or released. Last month, over 42 people, including 27 students, were kidnapped from a secondary school in Niger State, signaling a geographical expansion into the north-central region, part of the Middle Belt. The targeting of schools, worrying in itself, also further discourages students in a country with dismal rates of school attendance and completion. Banditry alone fails to explain the full scale of Nigeria's internal security problems. For much of this decade, a murderous conflict between herders and farmers has plagued Nigeria, particularly in the Middle Belt. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund, under the watch of the Executive Secretary, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, responded to our recalcitrant national security challenges by engaging the armed forces, that is the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, at the highest level of authority to promote the paradigm shift and enlist the problem statements of the armed forces.
Defense and security, I tell you one thing. Here we are. We know that what insecurity has caused this country. Whether it is insurgency or it is kidnappings now for multiple reasons. They know better why they are doing so. I always say armed robbery has become a lesser crime recently. We can go on. And you now know. But then, we as researchers, we need to put the question.
Beyond the quick win, the first thing we did was that we did research and development advocacy to all the service chiefs. And we ended it up by making sure that courtesy call on the research and development activities of TETFund was presented to the Honorable Minister for Defense in person, who honorably hosted TETFund Executive Secretary and the leadership of RDSC. And we move on to actually have an engagement with National Security Advisor. Like never before, General Manguno received the ES of TETFund, and the conversation was symbolic.
Air Vice Marshal Jomo Osahon is the pioneer Director General of the Defense Research and Development Bureau, a position he held until his recent retirement from the armed forces. He sheds light on why R&D is so important and the role it plays in national security.
We are aware, that most nations of the world, their ability to wage war and to deter potential adversary depends to a large extent on their level of technological sophistication. So similarly, the success of modern armed forces is measured by their ability to possess and to employ unique technologies to confront unique challenges. Now, talking about this unique technology, talking about the sophistication of technology, R&D is the bedrock. R&D is the foundation.
The armed forces of Nigeria depends heavily on the importation of military hardware, a situation which is detrimental to the growth of R&D and the emergence of military-industrial complex. The impact of this is felt the most in situations where global superpowers ignore emergencies in Nigeria because the country is not a priority for them.
Now, talking about the deception, sometimes they pretend to be your friend. They tell you that they are ready to help you even when they are not ready to help you. And sometimes they will tell you outrightly that they're not ready to help you. I remember when I made that presentation, I showed a video clip, which was like a kind of interview by a CNN staff.
A lot of people are saying, wait, where's the outrage of for what's going on in Nigeria? We saw 4 million people marching in the streets of Paris. We saw world leaders gathering there to sort of stand in solidarity with Paris. Where are those calls for the same kind of justice for the people of Nigeria?
The CNN staff asked him, why was it that you people responded immediately when there was a problem in Paris? And Nigeria has been having serious security problems, and you have really not done anything concrete. And he said it's not part of their priority. It's not a priority to them.
Look, what's happening in Nigeria is barbarous. It's horrible. I mean, it's complete madness, yet it's not a priority. The United States unilaterally could do almost anything it needs to do. It would be a long-term effort, but it could be done. And the United States has the capability. All the elements of power, we have those.
So why not?
It's not a priority. That's the problem.
It's not a priority to them. They are committed elsewhere. And so if Nigeria is not a priority to them, and he can come out outrightly to tell us, then we need to think inwards. We need to stop depending on these people. Because there is no way you can confront the security challenges that confront you when you are depending, or when you are 90% dependent on unwilling world powers to supply you your equipment and platforms.
In December 2017, following a frustrating period where negotiations froze under President Barack Obama, his successor, Donald Trump, decided to allow the United States State Department approve the sale of 12 Super Tucano jets to Nigeria. The same year, the country was forced to make an upfront payment of $500 million for the planes, despite the fact that they were scheduled to be delivered at least 3 years later. Recently, the Nigerian presidency announced that 6 of the 12 Super Tucano fighter aircraft earlier ordered by the federal government are set to arrive in the country by mid-July 2021, with the remaining 6 to come very shortly.
It took us more than 5 years to convince them to sell Super Tucano to us, more than 5 years. And eventually, after they have accepted, we still have to wait for another 3 years for it to be produced. You see, the point is, we must develop capacity. We must be able to advance in the area of technology. We must identify those things that are needful. And that is why the triple helix is a solution to this. The triple helix involves interface of the academia, the industry, and the government. The problems we have had all these years is most of these R&Ds are being done in silos. The academia are not working with the industries are not even working with the end users. Sometimes in the military, you have a particular R&D need, and maybe you don't have what is needed to do that. You should be able to know or identify an existing industry that has installed capacity to produce your required needs.
When it comes to defense and security, manufacturing is important to our local community because it maintains a high-quality local skill base, local regional suppliers of materials and services, and promotes training opportunities. Local production and maintenance is also cost-effective. If we begin a preventive maintenance program, one of our primary goals would have been to decrease production downtime and equipment inactivity.
I remember one of the things that happened during the First World War. Very interesting. When the German forces attacked the French colonial forces and the British forces, what did the British government do? They didn't have to travel to US to look for a solution. They didn't have to travel to any other country. The solution was within them. They assembled the academia and they tasked them to come up with a protective equipment and a deterrent. And they sat together, worked with the industry, and within a very short time, they came up with a good solution. And that was the end of the fear of the attack of the chlorine gas on them.
By using local services, we can have our equipment returned quicker with no delivery costs, saving money and time. Nigeria has had to look inwards in the past with surprisingly good results.
I recall some years ago in the Air Force, the Alpha jets were almost grounded because of brake assemblies. And what the leadership, before the advent of the immediate past, what the leadership was doing then was to send the brake assemblies out for overhaul. But just before 2015, most of those brake assemblies that were sent out to Canada, to America, and some of these places were seized for no just reason. They were not ready to send them back. And so, for us to operate Alpha jets, we had to look inward. And so, through R&D and also collaboration with some industries and institutions, we were able to indigenously overhaul these brake assemblies. The interesting thing is that as soon as they got to know that we have overhauled these brake assemblies, the brake assemblies that were seized were released, but we have already developed the capacity. And with what we were able to produce through that overhaul, we deployed it to the field, and those aircraft came back into operations. So it's important that we develop our own capacities. That is one aspect. I also recall a time where about 3 Alpha jets were delivered to Nigeria without weapon delivery capabilities, and it was necessary to weaponize these aircraft. And we contacted some of the Western powers. They were not willing. And some of them that came, that did the assessment, the impression we got from them was that it was not doable, that there was no way they were going to weaponize. It was not possible. Even the OEMs, they said it was not possible to weaponize these aircraft. And they were even calling amounts like over 40 million naira just to do evaluation. So When we realized that no solution was coming from these people and we needed to get these aircraft weaponized for us to deploy to the field, we had to carry out our own assessment, did our evaluation, brought in our engineers, collaborated with some industries, and we were able to weaponize those 3 aircraft with less than 5 million naira. Those aircraft are still flying in the Northeast.
Only recently, I know we are evaluating research grants won by agencies. I want to say this to the credit of Air Force Institute of Technology, Kaduna, that they have been doing very well. Don't forget that we are funding them. They are one of the beneficiaries of TETFund. So they have been winning National Research Fund grants. In fact, scaling up even the rates of successful grant application, and that is fantastic.
Through the Defense Research and Development Bureau, the need for rapid development and harvesting of resident skills, technologies, and innovations in Nigeria on unmanned aerial vehicles was identified as a priority project. TETFund sponsored the first national UAV talent hunt at the Air Force Training Institute in Kaduna in November of 2020.
Based on our engagement and arrangements and our interaction with the Defense Research and Development Bureau to facilitate and support the first activities around deployment and development of drone technology in this country, the UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle. And in that competition, like I was saying, reversing the brain drain, turning the negative tendencies, people across the country, innovators, young chaps, including Nigerians that were based in London, competed under this UAV arrangement. I'm happy to inform you that Nigerians were the ones that won that competition. And these are Nigerians that are actually schooling in London, in the UK, who heard about this, applied online, nobody knows them, came to compete, and they are the one that won. What a positive impact do you expect that one to say? Meaning that Nigerians that have run away from Nigeria to go and look for opportunities in London can now get opportunity in Nigeria, and they can actually participate in development of their country and still go back to their school.
And of course, talking about defense technology overall, who says that we should not have our own very commercial UAVs, as it were, defense-specific UAVs? Of course, the UAVs are used for multiple purposes. In fact, Agrobase, where DICON recently, Defense Industry Corporation, Kaduna, and believe me, multi-purpose, as it were, AFIT also, right? They demonstrated the use of UAVs for both defense and agriculture. One moment is used for defense. That is the beauty of innovation.
TETFund's long-run strategy for defense and security focuses on the revitalization and advancement of the Defense Industry Corporation of Nigeria, DICON. In this strategic partnership, TETFund provides a special intervention to DICON to fast-track research and development on material science engineering. The essence of this intervention is to develop indigenous alternatives to ensure systemic import substitution and strategic backward integration of arms and ammunition.
This paradigm shift by TETFund is very important because when we conducted our visit outside, we found out that some industries have more than the needed installed capacity to even venture into military-related areas of production. But because military equipments are not things that you just produce and keep on the shelf and wait for somebody to come, you must be sure. You must interface with the military. They must tell you that they are ready. And you need to work with them to get the right specification. So what we are trying to do now is to build up a database of competence and infrastructures. We'll look at those existing industries in Nigeria. We'll look at those R&D institutions in the universities and look at their competence, look at the infrastructures, the installed capacities, and see what they can do. We develop the database. Then when the military wants a particular area of research or production, they know where to go to. And we can start like this. The products might be a little bit crude, but let us just start.
Kinetic military action is a euphemism for military action involving active warfare, including lethal force. The phrase is used to contrast between conventional military force and non-kinetic action, defined as soft force, including diplomacy, sanctions, and cyber warfare. Using the triple helix model, TETFund is certain of successful kinetic and non-kinetic R&D outputs and outcomes from partnership of Nigeria's national tertiary institutions, military institutions, and global partners. The academia will generate primary research needed to develop new technologies or improve existing ones. Industry will then translate R&D findings from the academia into requisite technologies and innovations to meet the needs of society, while the government provides appropriate policies, legal frameworks, and an enabling environment. Nigeria is a country that is gifted with ingenuity. One only needs to look at the local mechanic who has received no formal training but has the ability to disassemble and reassemble a complex engine. Beyond that, the Nigerian mechanic is able to use innovation outside of the known engineering laws and principles to solve problems. Already, in the Nigerian Armed Forces, this ingenuity shines like a beacon of hope.
Another interesting area, still talking about, unique challenges and confronting them with, unique technology. I recall within my first 2 years as the Director General of Defense Research and Development Bureau, the Chief of Defense Staff sent for me and said that the boats that were deployed in the Northeast Lake Chad area for short were having issues, in deployment because of the increasingly low level of water and the uncharted nature of some areas, like the water width and all that. So that a specialized boat was needed. Even the flat bottom boats that were taken there were not effective. So we had to go into research, and we realized that airboat was the solution. We also had to look at an airboat that would also provide sufficient protection for the occupants. So we had to come up with an armored airboat. And this armored airboat has a speed of over 100 kilometers per hour, uses over a 750 horsepower engine. And it can go through swamps, it can go through uncharted water, very effective in the Lake Chad area and also in the creeks. So when we used to have those challenges of the criminals within the creeks, assuming that the military power cannot reach them because of some of those limitations of the environment, but with this airboat, the airboat can maneuver through swamps. It can even go through grass, even through sand. Muddy environment, it operates through uncharted water. So it's a kind of a force multiplier. And with it, our troops, can move in Lake Chad area and possess or take over some of those areas where they have not been able to because of a limitation of a platform. I showed it to Mr. President. Mr. President was so impressed that he approved the production of quantity 10 for the Armed Forces of Nigeria. We are partnering with an indigenous company, and so the contract has been awarded to the company, and the production has started. The prototype is there. The production has started now, and you can imagine the effects, how it will enhance. Naturally, it's going to enhance, the operations of our armed forces in those areas, in the Lake Chad, in the creek area, and we'll have better results in our operations.
As far as TETFund is concerned, the research and development effort for military technology is an important part of Nigeria's innovative activities and of the government's technological policy. Defense and security research and procurement programs can create a huge market financed by public funds for the emergence of new technologies. Technology is also taking center stage. It is estimated that about 70% of all defense acquisitions of hardware over the past 30 years have been parts of high technology systems, including missiles, aircraft, space, electronics, and communication equipment. In sectors at the technological frontier, Nigeria is likely to provide a market whose size can only be matched by few other countries. And that is the paradigm shift.